Jim, this next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Christopher Albright. Recently, I saw a video of Teddy Long speaking to Bill Apter about The Miz giving up his first-class seat to Teddy Long and going to sit and coach. My questions are, how and when does a wrestler know when it is okay to go sit in first class? Is it always the protocol for a wrestler to give up their seat to another wrestler who has been in the business longer? Has Jim ever heard any stories of wrestlers being accidentally given first class seating? And when was the first time Jim was invited on Crockett's plane?
Okay, there's all kinds of questions there, and I was laughing about the first one. So let's start at the beginning. Go back and what was the first one?
The first question, how does a wrestler know when it is okay to go sit in first class?
Well, it's not just ever okay to go sit in first class. You have to have a fucking ticket to begin with. It's not just like open seating. This is not Southwest Airlines. So the thing is, there has been heat in the past with younger guys. What we used to do back in the 80s, I don't know what they do these days. I haven't flown in a while, and I'm happy about it. But back in the 80s, especially all of us were frequent flyers, right? So every airline, Delta, US Air, whatever, had a deal back then that frequent flyers could upgrade to first class if there were seats available for a set fee. If it was under, oh, God damn it. Just imagine this is kind of, sort of. If it was under a 500-mile flight, you could upgrade your ticket that you had. If you had a full coach fare ticket, you could upgrade to first class for $40 for under 500 miles. 500 to 1,000 miles or 500, 1,500, whatever, was like 60, and over that was $80. And if they had first class seats, you could get them. And since Crockett had already bought our tickets, and sometimes we had the full fare ticket, or say in Charlotte, we knew all the gate agents, we could finagle. You could fly first class for like $40 or $80 and be more comfortable, and we would do that. But then every once in a while, you'd have the fucking deal where, you know, an underneath guy might have been able to do that, and there goes fucking, you know, one of the top guys, Tully, would give you the stink eye if he's headed back to coach because he didn't get there in time, right? And all the seats were gone or whatever. And sometimes we'd try to get there early to be the first one to be able to upgrade. But for the most part, there were only a few guys like Flair and Dusty, and I think the Road Warriors had first class tickets. You know, this was for Crockett in their contracts. And then
Did Luger?
And Luger. Yes, because remember that was the time I sat next to Luger in first class and asked him if he'd ever watched wrestling in Memphis when he played,
Oh, that's right.
you know, football there.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it was on when we came in the locker room, but I never really watched wrestling. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then I'd asked him, I said, and this is why Lex came off in those days bad to some of the guys, but he didn't realize it. He wasn't meaning to. He wasn't being nasty to any boys on purpose. But I asked him, I said, Lex, what would you have done if you'd had to start in Memphis and work for $300 or $400 a week for a couple of years? You know, he said, oh, I would have never have done that. And he's talking to a person who did that and other people who had done that, right? But the point is, I'm sitting next to him because he had first class in his contract, and I paid $40 with my frequent flyer card, right? We're next to each other. I don't know what Vince was doing in those days as far as who had first class and who didn't, but that's the thing. And then I'm sure Teddy's story, I haven't heard it, but, you know, he saw The Miz, meaning he saw there's Teddy, who's looks great, by the way, never ages. He's almost 80 now. Because before he even got in wrestling, he worked for James Brown and he was a DJ, and he's been on the program here before, back in the archives. It's somewhere. Anyway, Miz wanted to give, you know, to be cool. Here's this senior citizen and a Hall of Famer or whatever. So he gave him a seat. I think that's very kind of Miz. So he learned his lesson when they threw his shit out in the hallway and made him dress in a fucking mop closet. But that's the kind of thing that can get heat when a top guy will get on the plane and he'll see, an underneath guy or preliminary guy or whatever is in there in first class. He's got to jam himself in between, a woman with a fucking carbuncle on her neck and a fat guy from Cleveland with a fucking salami sandwich in his pocket. And then on Crockett's plane now, there was still a pecking order because it was an old Gulfstream prop jet that was customized to seat, I think it was 14 people. And that included the jump seat with the pilot. So really 13 chairs, but there weren't really 13 chairs because there was a bench seat that counted as 3. And then there was another double chair on the other side. So the captain's chairs, the big, nice leather seats, that was for Dusty and Flair and Crockett, if he was on it, because it was his fucking plane, and the Road Warriors and, Horsemen or whatever. And I was always on the bench. Actually, that's how I got over being afraid to fly on that plane, because everybody had to be in a seat and seat belted before they could take off. So as the manager and junior member of this equation, I was the guy that got the jump seat, because that was a little fucking hard ass thing that was hard and uncomfortable and right over the pilot's shoulders. But that was just for takeoffs and landings. Then I could get up and go back and sit down and blah, blah, blah. So when we'd take off or we'd land, I'm right on top of the pilots. I see them smiling. I see them joking. There's no panic going on. There's no alarm bells. I'm right on top of all the information. And they would tell me about turbulence and et cetera and blah, blah, blah. So I got a little more comfortable with that. But anyway, and then I'd go back and sit on the bench seat and let all the top guys have the captain's chairs, and everybody was lovely. What other questions were in there?
Hold on, I got to go back to the question now, because
because he asked about 18. I know it's been. Oh, now you're saying I'm rambling.
No, I'm not saying that. Hold on. Is it always the protocol for a wrestler to give up their seat to another wrestler who has been in the business longer?
Well, no, again, if it's a age and seniority issue, if you've got somebody that's 20 or 30 years older, then that is a polite thing to do. But at the same time, a guy could be in the second match and been in the business for 20 years, and here comes Hulk Hogan. Is he going to give his seat up because he's been in the business for fucking 5 when he's the WWF champion? So you have to play it by ear.
Is it as simple as if you got onto a plane and you see someone who just arrived on the main roster that week and they're in first class, you'd probably have a problem?
Well, me, no, because I ain't on the roster
Not
at all.
you,
But if I was on yes, if I've been around for a while and suddenly I'm sitting in coach once again in between fucking hairy twins or something, and I see a guy that just came up from NXT but that wouldn't happen because they're going to start that issue by giving somebody that just came from NXT a first class seat. And then if he upgraded, if they still do that kind of thing, then that leaves him open to some good-natured ribbing and or wrestler's court and or just going up there and saying, you know what? You're sitting back in 42C now, pal. I mean, and some people would call that bullying, but it's making best use of your time on an airplane.